If the mirror is telling you you're fine because you still look thin, that may be the lie. Because visceral belly fat does not always wait for an obviously overweight body to appear first. In some cases, it starts building deeper inside the abdomen, while the outside still looks normal enough to reassure you. And by the time the body changes enough to get your attention, that hidden pattern may already be much further along than you think. So before you trust the mirror too quickly, look for these early signs instead. The first thing to understand is that not all belly fat works the same way. When most people think about belly fat, they think about the kind they can see, pinch, or grab near the surface. That is usually the fat closer to the outside of the body. But visceral belly fat is different. It builds deeper inside the abdomen, around the organs, where it is harder to recognize clearly and easier to ignore for too long. And that is what makes it so deceptive. Because the outside can still look acceptable. Your arms can still look fairly lean. Your legs can still look relatively slim. Your weight may still seem normal enough to reassure you. Your clothes may still fit well enough for you to think nothing serious is changing. But the visible sign is not always the real problem. And the part people notice first is often not the part that matters most. That is exactly why this pattern gets missed. Some people spend years believing they are safe simply because they do not look like the kind of person they associate with dangerous belly fat. They compare themselves to someone heavier. They look at the scale. They look at their face. They look at their shoulders. And they assume the deeper risk must belong to someone else. But the body does not always store pressure in obvious ways. Sometimes it starts quietly. Sometimes it hides behind a relatively normal appearance. Sometimes the outside stays calm, while the inside starts changing first. And one of the earliest clues is a mismatch in body shape. If the rest of your body still looks relatively lean, but your lower belly keeps pushing forward in a way that feels out of proportion, that may be worth paying closer attention to. Not because one lower belly pooch proves something serious by itself. It does not. But when that lower abdominal shape keeps showing up, and the rest of the body does not seem to match it, the pattern may matter more than people realize. This is where many people misread what they are seeing. They tell themselves it must be posture, or bloating, or hormones, or just getting older. And sometimes those things do play a role. But when the shape keeps repeating, and especially when it becomes the one area that seems hardest to explain, the question changes. Why is this showing up here first? Why does the body still look relatively lean overall, but the lower belly keeps holding on to the change? That question matters, because the real issue may not be how much fat you can see. It may be where the deeper fat is beginning to build. The second early clue is when your waist starts changing before your weight seems dramatic enough to explain it. A lot of people notice this slowly. A waistband feels tighter. A belt notch changes. Pants start fitting differently around the middle, but not everywhere else. A shirt still fits across the chest and shoulders, but the midsection feels less forgiving than it used to. And because the total body does not look dramatically different, the pattern gets normalized. This is one of the most common traps. People often wait for the whole body to become obviously heavier before they take the waist seriously. But the waist is often where pressure becomes visible earlier. And when the waist keeps drifting in one direction over time, even while the rest of the body still looks relatively normal, that may be one of the clearest signals that the outside is no longer telling the full story. And this often starts quietly. Long before the body looks officially overweight, long before someone else would look at you and think anything major is wrong. Long before the mirror feels alarming enough to trigger urgency. That is part of why this pattern is so easy to miss. It arrives early enough to matter, but subtly enough to be explained away. And this is where the mirror becomes unreliable. Two people can look surprisingly similar in clothes and still be carrying very different patterns inside the abdomen. One may be storing more fat closer to the surface. The other may be building deeper abdominal fat in the space around the organs, where the outside can stay relatively calm for much longer. The mirror can show shape. It cannot show depth. And that may be one of the biggest reasons this gets missed until the body has already been compensating for it longer than expected. The third clue can show up in a place many people do not connect to belly fat at all: the face. In some cases, the face starts looking softer, puffier, or less defined, even when the body still does not look especially heavy. The jawline looks less clear. The cheeks look fuller. The face can start looking more tired, more inflamed, or less sharp in ways that do not quite match the rest of the body. This does not diagnose anything by itself, but the body often leaves clusters before it leaves conclusions. And when facial puffiness starts showing up, together with a thicker waist and a stubborn lower belly shape, the pattern may deserve far more attention than people usually give it. Because some of the most important warning signs are not dramatic. They are persistent. They keep returning. They stop resolving the way they used to. And over time, that repetition matters.
The fourth clue is a mismatch in energy and recovery. Not just being tired once in a while, not just having one rough day, but a pattern where your body feels heavier, slower, foggier, or less stable than the outside would suggest. Some people notice morning brain fog. Some notice that after certain meals, they feel unusually sluggish. Some notice energy crashes in the afternoon that did not used to happen as often. Some feel like they wake up tired even after what should have been enough sleep. On their own, those things can happen for many reasons. But when lower belly projection, waist drift, facial puffiness, and unstable energy begin showing up together, the picture changes. One sign alone means very little. A cluster means more. That is one of the most important ideas in this entire video. The pattern matters more than the symptom by itself. And the fifth clue is that the body starts feeling less flexible under ordinary stress. Recovery gets slower. Sleep feels less restorative. A small period of overeating seems to hit harder. A short run of poor sleep leaves a bigger mark than it used to. The waist seems to react faster. The face seems to hold on to the change longer. And the body no longer seems to bounce back the way it once did. That may not sound dramatic in the beginning, but it may be one of the reasons deeper metabolic strain can build quietly before most people fully recognize what direction things are moving in. What happens next is less visible, but more important, because this is usually where the deeper pattern begins to matter. Visceral belly fat is not just stored energy sitting quietly in one place. It is more metabolically active than many people realize. That means it may affect how the body handles inflammation, blood sugar, stress signals, and energy regulation over time. It does not usually happen all at once. The body starts adjusting in stages. At first, the changes may be subtle. The waist feels a little different. The lower belly feels a little more persistent. The face looks a little puffier. Energy feels a little less stable. Recovery takes a little longer. And that is exactly what makes the pattern dangerous. Not how dramatic it looks, how easy it is to dismiss. Because the body usually does not jump straight to obvious breakdown. It compensates first. It absorbs strain first. It keeps functioning first. And that is why some of the earliest signs can look mild, inconsistent, or easy to rationalize away.
But that does not make them unimportant. In some cases, it makes them more important, because a quiet warning is still a warning. And what makes visceral belly fat concerning is not just that it exists, it is that it can influence a much bigger internal pattern, while the outside still looks normal enough to delay attention. That is the real warning here. Not that every thin person has visceral belly fat, and not that every lower belly change means something serious. The warning is that deeper abdominal fat does not always wait for an obviously overweight body to appear first. Sometimes the outside stays reassuring for longer than it should. Sometimes the hidden problem builds under a body that still looks normal enough to avoid concern. And that false reassurance is exactly what delays attention. So what should you actually take from this? Not panic, not self-diagnosis, and not the assumption that one sign means you definitely have a bigger internal problem. That is not the point. The point is to recognize patterns earlier. If you look relatively lean overall, but your waist keeps thickening, your lower belly stays pushed forward, your face looks puffier, your energy feels less stable, and your body seems less resilient under ordinary stress, that pattern deserves attention, especially if it keeps moving in the same direction over time, especially if the mirror keeps reassuring you while the body keeps giving you small clues. Because this is where many people wait too long. They wait for certainty. They wait for a bigger symptom. They wait for a more dramatic body change. But the body often starts with quieter signals first. And those quieter signals are often more useful precisely because they arrive earlier. The earlier you recognize the pattern, the more useful the signal becomes. That does not mean fear. It means awareness. It means not treating repeated changes like meaningless noise. It means understanding that the body often communicates in clusters, not headlines. And it means asking better questions sooner. Why is my waist changing faster than the rest of me? Why does my lower belly seem more stubborn than the rest of my body would suggest? Why does my face look softer when my overall weight still seems normal? Why does my energy feel less stable, even though the outside does not look dramatically different? Those questions do not diagnose anything, but they do move you closer to pattern recognition. And pattern recognition is exactly where control begins. Not control through panic, not control through extreme promises, and not control through pretending one video can explain every possible reason the body changes. Real control starts earlier than that. It starts when you stop assuming the mirror tells the whole truth. It starts when you stop waiting for your body to look obviously unwell before taking repeated small changes seriously. And it starts when you understand that visceral belly fat may begin affecting the body before the outside makes the risk feel obvious. So the real warning is not that every thin person has a deeper problem. It is that a relatively normal-looking body can still hide a pattern that should not be ignored for too long. If your waist is thickening, your lower belly stays pushed forward, your face looks puffier, and your energy feels less stable, the question is not whether one sign means the worst. The question is whether several quiet changes may already be pointing in the same direction. Because visceral belly fat does not always announce